Hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We appreciate your time and attention for the webinar, and we certainly appreciate our presenters today. Our topic today is the monitoring imperative, how to confirm high availability for Traveler. Our presentation is done by RPR Wyatt, specifically the product manager Alan Forbes, and sales manager Jim Ingo will be online to answer any questions at the end of the presentation as well. If you do have any questions as the webinar is progressing, you can expand your GoToWebinar control panel with the red triangle and white arrow, and then there will be a section for questions. If you just want to type those in, they'll then be queued up and ready for me to ask Alan or Jim at the end of Alan's presentation. Again, this is a nice presentation, and Alan and Jim, thank you for your time for preparing this. I'm going to turn the time over to you now, Alan, and I will let you know when we see your screen.
All right, thank you very much, Scott. I appreciate that introduction. Flattery will get you everywhere. All right, I am sharing my screen. Let me know when it pops up.
I see your screen.
Cool. All right, so this is about VitalSigns Plus, and specifically we're going to talk about the imperative to monitor. So this is a little different from some of the other webinars that I've done. Typically, I do like 90% demo and maybe 10% slides. I'm going to do about 50-50 here, but I am going to keep it short. And what I'm going to talk about first really is sort of the business case of why you would want to monitor your servers. Then we'll talk a little bit about why VitalSigns is the tool that you would want to select to monitor your servers, and then we're going to do the actual demo, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. I don't think we're going to take the whole hour. We're going to keep it short and sweet here. So why do you want to monitor? At the highest possible level, that's because disasters, whether they're large or small, do happen. And the point of monitoring is to be able to either prevent or respond to a disaster. And a disaster is a term that we can use fairly loosely. That can range from everything from power loss, connectivity loss, air conditioning loss, disk failure, or even the loss of an entire site. And I mentioned there Superstorm Sandy because one of our major sites here at RPR Wyatt actually is in New Jersey. And when Superstorm Sandy hit, that office was offline for about 10 days. That made a big difference for us. So we hadn't really thought about that really happening until it did. So I know it's hard to imagine losing a whole site, but it actually can and does happen. Now we can't prevent things like Superstorm Sandy certainly, but we monitor to prevent disasters wherever that's possible. But more specifically to minimize the disruptive effects of a disaster through early detection and early response. So diving down a little deeper here in terms of why you would want to monitor, the first thing is that you want to optimize reliability. Now, the most basic monitoring function is to determine whether a server is functioning correctly or not. Now, when a server is not running, then the appropriate parties are notified to minimize the downtime. So another one of the functions of a monitoring tool is getting the alerts out, knowing who to alert and when to alert and how to get them out automatically. Now, the reliability is increased when downtime is automatically detected rather than waiting for end users to say, to notice and to call and complain and to swamp the help desk and so forth. If the IT folks can get a jump on that before the end users start to notice, then that's a perfect example of minimizing the effects of the disaster, whatever the disaster may be. And what we really would like to be is proactive rather than reactive. So if the monitoring tool indicates a looming problem, like the server is running out of disk space or some other thing, you know that if you ignore that problem, you're going to have downtime. But if you can get ahead of it and proactively address it before it affects the end users, then that is a much better way to handle things, and the end users don't even know about it. It's sort of happening invisibly behind the scenes. And of course, nobody wants to sit around watching servers manually. So with a monitoring tool, you get better staff utilization because the knowledge workers, IT staff, are freed to perform higher value tasks than, running a scan on disk space across all the servers and so forth. Another side benefit of monitoring is it does give you better troubleshooting. So when a server starts to have issues, one of the things that a monitoring tool offers you is the ability to compare and contrast, say, a healthy server with a unhealthy server, or to spot some other trends that have been coming and say, gee, I wonder why this server is suddenly having problems, because it usually isn't sudden. Usually there's something that's building up, and if you are tracking some of the metrics about a server, you can go back and start to see maybe what was going on with the server. And that sort of gets back to the whole idea of having charts and graphs to track the historical performance of a server. So if someone is asking you, hey, is that server getting slower? You can say definitively, yes, it is, and I can show you how, or no, it isn't, and I can prove that too. So reports allow you to present that information to the stakeholders, both to inform them and to lead them. And by leading, what I mean is if you can spot a server bottleneck, or if you can document bottlenecks or document the fact that you're running out of space, or always pegging the CPU, or always using all the memory, and it's a lot easier to secure management approval for these kind of upgrades. It's not a feeling that you're pitching, but you're actually backing it up with data. Now, I know some of the companies out there actually have to deal with service level agreements, and I've worked in companies with service level agreements before, and it's really hard to document compliance with a service level agreement unless you have some sort of tool that can actually produce reports and say, here's our uptime, and here's our response time, and here's whatever commitments you've entered into. If you can document your compliance with that through metrics that are gathered by a tool, then there is not really any dispute about what the facts are. So that's the high level, why should you even want to monitor in the first place? Now, if you've made the case that monitoring is in fact an imperative, then the next thing is, all right, well, what monitoring tool am I going to use? If you have an environment that is IBM-centric, then VitalSigns is one of the logical choices, because VitalSigns has a very deep knowledge of IBM Domino. The monitoring tool actually uses the Notes client API to test the servers to make sure that they're responsive, and it's actually, as far as the end user, as far as the server is concerned, VitalSigns is just another Notes user out there on the network. You don't have to install anything on any of the servers. It doesn't change your production environment in any way. And I think we all understand that IBM Traveler has become more and more mission critical and high profile, and the generic tools like What's Up Gold and some of the other tools are not really specific to IBM Traveler. You need a product that understands what Traveler is doing and how it works, and is actually testing it, so that the executives that are looking at their iPhone aren't calling you saying, how come, I'm getting a message on my desktop faster than my phone? We've all gotten calls like that. The other thing is VitalSigns is more than just Domino. We also have a deep knowledge of IBM SameTime, and we have a whole set of functions that test the IBM SameTime server. And again, the same sort of consistent model of acting like an end user. In this case, we use the SameTime client Java APIs to test the server. What we do is we'll log in as two users, and user number one logs in and checks to see if user number two is online. Then user number one goes to away, and user number two makes sure that the server can see the status change, and then they chat back and forth and so forth. And basically, they're doing the things that an end user cares about, both for making sure Domino servers are up and for making sure that IBM same-time servers are up. And here's my last slide, and we're going to jump over to the demo format. Why VitalSigns? It's 100% browser-based. It has very flexible alerting and maintenance windows. Our dashboard scales from a couple of servers to hundreds of servers. I think you'll find that it has a clean and intuitive user interface, and we have some very robust reporting. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is here. Let me switch over to some demo. All right, so what I'm looking at here in my browser window is the VitalSigns dashboard. I'm running it in Firefox, and you see that the way that you get to the dashboard is you put in either a host name or an IP address. Let me start it with this. And it will prompt you for your credentials, and you can either put in your credentials if you're an IT person or if you're somebody that's on the help desk or another stakeholder that just wants to see what's going on. You can click the button for dashboard only, and we'll display the high-level status, but limit the types of changes and deep dives that you can do. So let me go ahead and put in my credentials here. Now, you also have a choice of, once you log in, letting VitalSigns know which page you prefer to be taken to. In this case, it took me first to the configurator. There's really two pieces to VitalSigns, the configurator and the dashboard. And those are secured by roles, so you can give somebody credentials and only let them see the dashboard. You can also give people credentials and let them use the configurator in a limited fashion. Let me switch over to the dashboard. The configurator is primarily where you make the settings changes, like setting the thresholds and the scan intervals and the names of the servers that you want to monitor and so forth. And the dashboard is where you go to see the results of that. So my dashboard here, I can tell I'm in the dashboard as opposed to being in the configurator by the words up here, the dashboard. At the highest level, you really only have to look at the top 4 boxes here to see that I've got 10 servers that are perfectly okay, 3 that have issues, and 11 that are not responding. And just to put your mind at ease, that because this is a demo environment, we have a mix of not responding and issues and so forth, but our production environment is actually much more stable than this. So you'll notice that as I'm mousing over these things, that they're lighting up, because pretty much everything in VitalSigns is clickable. So for instance, if I wanted to see what 3 issues I have, I can click on the button here and it takes me immediately to the list of servers that are experiencing issues at the moment. So I've got a BlackBerry server that's got an issue, a Domino server with an issue, and a same-time server with an issue. If I go back to the overview here, let's say that I'm only interested in seeing Domino servers with issues, and that one just popped away because, again, this is a test environment and they go in and out of different statuses. Say I want to see just my Domino servers. I can click on the word Domino, or if I want to see all the servers that are not responding, I can click on this box, or I can, again, the point is to drill down and see just exactly what you're looking for. So let me look at my Traveler servers, and I've got a big long list here. Let's see, I want to see the servers that are in Arizona Phoenix office. See that the list pairs down. Whenever you see one of these filter boxes at the top of the server, it will pare down the list so you can see a subset of that. And if you want to see more information about a server, you can click on the row and it will bring up more detailed information. But here I can see overall it's okay. Here's when I last connected to it. Here's information about dead, held, and pending mail. Here's my memory, and here's my CPU. So let's go ahead and click on it and bring up the detail page. So what you're seeing here is that over the last 24 hours or so, this is the response time of the server, and the response time is measured from the monitoring workstation using the Notes Client API to do the equivalent of, in a Notes client, you might do file application open, and you pick the server from the list, and it returns back a list of databases. So it's what the end user would experience. Here we see the list of all the drives and how they're doing. Here you can see the CPU spike, CPU over the last 24 hours. Here's the memory usage. Here's the number of users, and here's the current values of dead mail, pending mail, and held mail. If you click on the tab for server tasks, you can see the server tasks that are running and what their current state is. If I had told VitalSigns that I wanted to watch over specific tasks like HTTP and Traveler and so forth, those would show up at the top of the list here because they would be more important. And VitalSigns can send alerts on specific server tasks if you tell it to, and it can even take actions like telling the server to load a specific task or tell server restart if it is hung or whatever. So we can also see when that server has experienced any outages, any other alerts that might have been sent out for the last 7 days or so, and then any scheduled maintenance windows that are upcoming or in the past or so forth. So there's quite a bit of deep dive that you can do on the server here. We also have, in addition to the overview and the drill down list views that I just showed, we also have some different key metrics of various attributes of the health of the servers. So one obvious one would be disk health, because you want to make sure that you're not running out of disk space on any of your servers. And we'll figure out which servers a Domino server has and pull this information up and color code it for you, and we'll warn you as it approaches a threshold. And you can actually tell VitalSigns that I want different thresholds for different drives, and you can tell it to ignore drives and so forth. Another important one, obviously, would be how are my Traveler servers doing? So I can go in here under Server Health, Traveler Health, and what VitalSigns does here is present you with a subset of Domino servers that are Traveler servers. And we present a page that is very Traveler specific. So at the top here, you have a list of the Traveler servers and what their status is. And this status here of green is the health that the Traveler server self-reports. And it can be red, yellow, or green. We'll pull up the version. We'll tell you how many device syncs it's done. We've pulled this out of the health of the server task. We also check the Traveler servlet, which is a great way to find out whether the server is responding or not. And by that, what I mean is, let's take the case of the DOM1 server. If I put in the URL that an end user would go to provision a new device, which in this case is our, the host name servlet Traveler, it will challenge you for a username password, which I've conveniently queued up. And if the Traveler server is running, you're going to get back a status message, something like this. Notes Traveler server is available. It says Lotus in version 8, and it says IBM in version 9. But what we do is we query this servlet, pass it some user credentials, and we look for the phrase Traveler server is available. And if that phrase is found, then we conclude that the Traveler servlet is okay. And if the server is down, if the Domino server is up but Traveler is not running, that servlet returns a slightly different message. And if it's not responding at all, then obviously that would indicate even a bigger problem. Another thing that tends to happen with Traveler servers is that when you initially configure it, you get the default number of HTTP threads. It comes with a server. That's 100 with a 32-bit server and 400 on a 64-bit server. And at the beginning, when you have hardly any users, that's no problem at all. But as the word about how cool Traveler gets out, people start to connect more and more devices, and you can rapidly run out of threads and not even realize it. So one of the things that VitalSigns does is it checks to see how many threads are configured on that server. Then it takes the number of devices, and IBM says you have to have the number of devices times 1.2 number of threads, and we'll figure out whether you have enough threads or not. And if you're approaching the limit, then that will trigger an alert, and you'll show that in the dashboard. It will tell you hey, it's time to take a look at the threads for HTTP. That's one of the things that will absolutely crush the performance of a Traveler server, is if it doesn't have enough threads, then what happens is the HTTP task ends up juggling threads all the time and dropping one person and creating a new session for somebody else, and then another device connects and so forth, and it's constantly juggling those connections, and that tends to use up more of the CPU, and the performance starts to wither away. So that's the high level up at the top here is how my Traveler server is doing. You also notice that as I click from one row to another, that some of these graphs down below start to change, and some of these grids start to change. So it's one thing to know that your Traveler server is okay, but it's another thing to know whether the Traveler server is successfully communicating with all the mail files or mail servers that it's supposed to connect to. Now in this case, our DOM1 server reaches out to mail files on both DOM1 and on DOM2, but we've worked with some very large customers where a single Traveler server might reach out to 20 or more different mail servers. And if it starts to struggle with one of those, it's not immediately obvious until end users start to complain. So what we do is we parse out the Traveler statistics that the server console provides, and we basically decode it and color code it. So if you've ever looked at the statistics that Traveler gives back, for instance, if you say show stat Traveler, you'll see that there's a number of histogram statistics which tell you that some numbers that increment forever from whenever the Traveler server started. And that is for each mail server that it has to talk to, the number of device synchronizations where it reached out to that mail server that took between 0 and 1 second, and between 1 and 2 seconds, and between 2 and 5 seconds, and between 5 and 10 seconds, and so forth. That information by itself is not particularly helpful because you don't necessarily know if some of the slow synchronizations that took between 5 and 10 seconds or 10 and 30 seconds happened today, or whether they happened a month ago, because it's, again, those statistics are from when the server started. So what we do is we'll scan the server at whatever interval you say, let's say every 5 or 8 minutes or something like that, and we'll remember the values, and what we put in here is the incremental difference. So in the last scan, since the last time we looked at this server, there were no synchronizations that took between 60 and 120 seconds, or 30 and 60 seconds, or 10 and 30 seconds, and so forth. So all those zeros are what we hope to get, and because they're all zeros, those get marked as green. And all the device syncs that did happen are in the fast range here, so that positive number is marked as green as well. If these were zeros and these had values, the color coding would switch around. Now let's say, for example, that you came to this page and you saw that the number of device syncs between your Traveler server and one of the mail servers had positive numbers in the 0 to 30, or 5 to 10, and so forth. What you'd want to be able to tell is this a one-off event, or is this something that's been going on all day? And that's another thing that's virtually impossible to tell from the statistics that IBM provides. So what we do, again, is we are recording the intervals, and we store that in a SQL database. So if you wanted to see how well DOM1 is communicating with the mail server DOM2, and you wanted to see, gee, have these synchronizations that are taking between 10 and 30 seconds happening a lot, or are they not happening much at all? You can look in the graph here and you say, oh, gee, that happened a couple times this morning. A couple times being one in our case, and it's not a lot. But for any of these intervals, you can go back and look. For the high numbers, you'd hope to see a nice flat line over the last 24 hours. I was actually surprised to see those little spikes there. But in any case, you can look back and see, is this an ongoing problem or is this a one-off? If it was an ongoing problem, then that would be something to investigate. If it was a one-off, then you wouldn't necessarily worry about it. Maybe it was a networking hiccup and so forth. You can also see the usage of the HTTP sessions. So if the Traveler server is complaining that you're running out of sessions or that you're approaching the threshold, you can see if that was just something that happened to be a spike or that's an ongoing issue on a particular Traveler server. Another thing we do is we parse out the Traveler servlet that gives you the information about all the devices, and we pull that into our database and present it in a nice, easy way so that you can do things like, again, wherever you see a grid and you want to parse down a list, you can put in a partial string, and it will return just the subset of data that matches the list. So if you wanted to look at a particular user and find out when they last synced or find out how many devices they have, that would be a very easy thing to do here. And you can also pare it down to say, show me all the devices that have not synced in the last hour, right, by selecting the list here and then moving the slider. We also create a graphical representation of the distribution of the various devices that you're supporting. So you could say, we have lots of iPhones, and we have Samsungs, and we have Androids, and so forth. We also break it down into the device OS as well. So when you're making the case for, why is it important to have resources to support Traveler when it's supposedly a simple system, well, you can say, well, yes, it is, but we're supporting dozens of different operating systems and hundreds of different device types, and that's not simple at all. All right, so that's pretty much it for Traveler. That is sort of the focus of today's webinar. Let me just run quickly through a couple of other things. Let me talk about Domino server health. I talked about the fact that if you had a issue with a server where one server was performing well and one wasn't, one of the nice things that a monitoring tool can provide you is the ability to compare and contrast. So you could pick any 2 or any 3 servers from your list here and click the compare button, and then what VitalSigns will do is show you some of the differences between the transactions and the messages and the CPU and the memory and so forth. And if you look at this chart here, you can quickly see that one server has a lot more free memory than another server has. And maybe that is the root cause of what's going on with the performance differences with that particular server. You can also look at information about mail files. So for instance, who has the biggest mail files, either across all the servers or looking at a specific server. And you can also go into the reports area, and we've got all kinds of reports on disk space and utilization and devices and response time and availability and so forth. And all you have to do to use one of these reports is find the report that you're interested in and click on it, and up it comes. So let's pick Domino database inventory. All of these reports can be exported out to Excel or out to PDF or to any one of these other formats, and they can, most of them can also be customized, so you could say, limit the report to this particular server or this particular date range and so forth. And if you don't know exactly what report you're looking for, you can use the same trick here. So you can put in a partial string here, and you'll get a match back for all the reports that have that word in it. And again, you click on that, and let's see what this one looks like. You can, all right, so that the maximum CPU utilization for the day, we turned this machine on yesterday for the demo. I'm going to switch back to the slides here and open it up to questions and hopefully provide answers.
All right, perfect. We do have do have a couple of questions already queued up, and let me just get that open to where I can see it better. First question is, can VitalSigns monitor ports as well as the Domino servers?
Can it monitor ports? Yeah. If you go over to the configurator, you'll see under servers and devices there's different categories of things that we can monitor. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by ports. One of the things would be maybe mail services would be a port, like SMTP is on port 25 and POP3 is on port 110. When we monitor mail-specific ports, we don't just telnet to them, but we actually have a component under the hood that does a sort of native protocol request. So in the case of SMTP, we'll send a hello command and make sure that the server gives us an answer back. And at the most basic level, if you just want to ping a port and make sure that the thing answers, then we offer that as well. You just give it the IP of the host name, and we'll just ping it and make sure that it answers.
Okay, perfect.
I guess that's my answer for that.
Right, right. Since Traveler is a very important piece of the communications at a corporation, how often can you be notified of the status?
Well, I guess there's two answers to that. Answer number one would be, if you wanted to, you could keep the Traveler Health page up and have it refresh automatically and look at it that way. Or the other way, the more realistic way, is that you don't want to be necessarily looking at a dashboard all day, even though, in my humble opinion, this is a very nice thing to look at. What you can do instead is simply rely on the alerts to happen. So we didn't really spend much time on the configurator, but you can customize the alerts that you get, and to quite a bit of detail. You can say, here's the type of alert I want it to go to my, say, office email address during business hours, and I want it to go to my Gmail account in off hours, and for certain types of alerts I also want it to send a text message to my phone. So you can specify who to go to and so forth. And then you can say, well, here's the types of alerts that I'm interested in. Make that a little bigger here. So if you were mostly interested in being woken up in the middle of the night only for Traveler alerts, you could say, if there's anything with, say, traveler mail, meaning the traveler server having difficulty getting to a specific mail server, or if the traveler server goes down, or if the traveler server status changes to yellow or to red, for any of these servers that I'm personally responsible for, that can be an alert profile that you can set up, and then VitalSigns will monitor the traveler server at whatever interval you specify, every 8 minutes, every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, whatever. If any of these conditions are detected for any of these servers, then the alert is going to go out to whatever address that you've specified up here. So that's the answer to that.
Okay, perfect. And can this can VitalSigns monitor non-mail servers, or is there another option for doing that?
It can monitor any Domino server. It can be an application server or a hub server or anything. We have some basic tests that we perform against every Domino server, like does it respond? Is it responding within the threshold that you specified? Does it have mail piling up? Does it have the server tasks loaded that it's supposed to have? How's the memory? How's the disk? How's the other metrics? And then we can automatically detect if a server is a traveler server, and if it is, then we do additional tests on the traveler server, of course. But VitalSigns really started off as a generic Domino monitoring tool, and as Traveler got more and more critical, then obviously we ended up putting more and more resources into understanding Traveler and making sure that we could detect it when it has issues before end users detect them.
Okay, and how many Traveler servers can VitalSigns monitor at one time?
That's a great one. We're really starting to hit some pretty big customers. We have one customer that I probably shouldn't name that has 36 Traveler servers, and the first version of it that we gave to them, we discovered that capturing all of this data times that many servers times so many mail servers, because each one of the Traveler servers talked to up to 25 mail servers in the back end, that we were generating millions of data points, and that obviously put a limit on how much we could do. But we've been working with that customer to scale it, and actually at this point we're not aware of a limit. We have some customers that have 70 servers on a box. We have some other customers that have over 100 servers on a single monitoring station. But at this point, our big customer in terms of Traveler has 36 Traveler servers.
Excellent.
That's my answer. All right.
Okay. Great. I think that's the end of the questions. Unless anyone has one more question, it's time to type it in quickly, and you can get that answered. Alan, I'm sure there's a demo. Is there a demo available if someone would like to try the VitalSigns to make sure their Traveler servers are up and running?
Two things that we offer generally. The first thing is when somebody is sort of interested but not quite convinced yet, we'll offer a one-on-one WebEx. So we just, rather than me doing a generic demo like this, we'll do one that's more tailored to them, and they can ask specific questions about them. And then, assuming that they like what they saw there, then the next step would be for them to run it internally against their own Domino servers. And, we definitely embrace the policy of try before you buy. So we'll give them a internal license to monitor as many Domino servers as they need. pretty much for as long as they need to feel comfortable with it. And most companies know, within a couple of weeks whether this is going to be a good fit for them or not. And we are happy to let it stand on its own. And the installation process is not very painful at all. It takes about 30 minutes maybe to get all the prerequisites and to get the SQL Server installed and so forth. All you really need is a box with a notes client on it, and it can be a VM. And we've even done a lot of work on making the install so smooth that we can pick a item from the menu here to import servers, and we'll just pull all the servers right out of the address book, and you can have them all imported and configured in a very quick amount of time. And we have sales engineers that'll hold your hand through the whole process.
Perfect.
All right.
All right. Well, that concludes the questions. So
Awesome.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for everyone
Thanks for
that
having me today.
attended, and I'll give you the last word. Do you have a slide to remind them where to go for more information up on the RPR Wyatt? So apologize for that, catching you on blindsided on that, but I did have it on my introduction slide is www.rprwyatt.com. That's as you see in the logo, it's W-Y-A-T-T. And then if anyone has questions, I'll include, there'll be an automatic email coming out that it will have your contact information on it, Alan, and Jim's as well. So if you do want to follow up with Jim or Alan, that information is coming to you. We did record this webinar, so if you would like to show the replay to any of your colleagues, just let us know and we'll provide you a link. So that'll be all set. Again, thank you so much for attending. And I'm going to change back over to me, showing my screen. I think, yeah, there's the website, www.rprwyatt.com. So we're all set there. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Jim, and RPR Wyatt for preparing it. Everyone have a great day. And, again, just reach out to Alan or Jim if you have any questions.